Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Today's podcast episode is coming at you hot because I just experienced something and it got me thinking about this, and I think it's important for you to hear. So if you press play, you know the title of this podcast. Is it life happening or self-sabotage? There is a difference. Sometimes life happens, and other times we create happenings in life or we respond to happenings in life which take us off our path, and it is in reality self-sabotage. So where is this coming from? If you follow me on social media, then you know that yesterday, which feels like moons ago, it actually just hit the 24-hour mark as I'm recording this. But yesterday, there was a dog just on my street. He had a collar, but no contact information on the collar. And it looked like he was using a bathroom. He didn't have a leash or anything. He was peeing on the grass or whatever. And then I was like, does he have an owner with him? Like sometimes people let their dogs go without a leash. So I was like, oh, maybe their owner's nearby, maybe around the corner. Looking around, nobody's there. I'm like, that's weird. And like the town I live in is super small and everyone kind of knows each other and everybody knows each other's dogs. And like no one has seen this dog before. So people were driving by and I'm like, do you know whose dog this is? Like, is it the neighbors? They let him out the front. I don't know. He got out of the backyard. Anyways, long story short, it is nobody's in my town. So I picked up the dog. He was obviously very nervous at first. And as I'm recording this, my cat is entering the room. And I don't know if he knows that the dog is here sleeping. Oh boy. I got two cats, Joey and Chloe. Chloe doesn't care that the dog is here. Joey, on the other hand, is a little bit of a nervous Nelly. And he is adapting, but a little bit on the slower side. So unfortunately, he just came into the room and now he's leaving the room. And now my heart is sad. So this is what I've been dealing with in the past 24 hours, but it feels like moons ago. And the reason why I wanted to record today's podcast is because obviously like life happened yesterday, right? So yesterday, I was planning on doing some work for the Dietitian Business Collective, which if you don't know, I started a business with my registered dietitian friends, helping other registered dietitians grow their businesses online. And we're in the midst of releasing something super cool. And so obviously I need to figure out, I'm obviously very passionate about that part of my business. And, I have a lot on my plate, but I was figuring, all right, let me get that out of the way Sunday so that Monday I can do stuff for you guys, for Tips with Tony, for the thing that's like kind of my main gig. And so that was my plan for yesterday. Well, that obviously didn't happen. My plan was also to go to church, but this all happened on our way to church. So me and my stepdaughter, Amira, were in the car. All of a sudden we see the dog. Now somehow I'm a dog owner. Like what? Okay. Before you go on to say, I did not kidnap this dog. We are looking for the owner. It clearly has an owner. When you tell it to sit, it sits. It has a collar that says Peanut on the collar. So his name is Peanut. He's super, super cute. If you know of anyone who's missing a dog that lives in New York, and they happen to have the name Peanut, then, please contact me. Hopefully you know how, at this point. But anyways, why am I bringing this up? Clearly, my day yesterday did not go as planned. This morning, I had every intention to go to Orange Theory, and with Orange Theory, you sign up before, and if you basically, if you don't sign out within like the 8-hour window, you can get charged. So it really helps with accountability, and that's why I love to go. Because I work from home, I used to work out at home a lot, but I've really lost, and this is probably for another episode and another podcast, but I'm really losing that like self-motivating factor to work out at home where I used to be able to do it no problem. I think maybe because we moved, I don't know. I just can't, I'm having a hard time. So I sign up for classes on purpose, and it's how I get my workouts in. And anyways, the dog now is literally my shadow. Like everywhere I go, he follows. And when I had to leave the house yesterday for a little bit, he started barking and kind of like scratching at the door. And so, but at that point, you know, my boyfriend and my stepdaughter were home, and they were, you know, he was able to calm down. Well, this morning, my boyfriend's at work, my stepdaughter's at school. It was just me, but I left, so nobody is here. So the dog is barking and barking and barking and barking. And the people upstairs know that, you know, I found this dog yesterday, and they're really understanding, and, you know, they don't care. But I know how annoying it is to have a barking dog. I actually moved because the old apartment building that we lived at, literally, I guess the person who lived above us worked nights. So they would go to work at night, and the dog would bark literally nonstop for 8 hours, and we didn't get a wink of sleep. It's literally why I moved out of that place. So I don't want to be that person that has the barking dog. Right. And I understand this dog is very, you know, stressed out and uncomfortable and whatever. So anyways, I promise you I'm getting to this to the lesson in this podcast, which is I ended up canceling myself out of the class. I was on my way there, but my neighbor was saying he was still barking and he hadn't stopped since I left to drop Amira off to school. So that was like 45 minutes. Like the poor dog has been barking for 45 minutes. That breaks my heart and that breaks my soul. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do my workout. Also, I slept at my sister's like a couple nights ago. And I just, every time I sleep on her like pullout couch, it's never a good sleep. So I woke up with like a little bit of a backache. So all to say, like, it could sound like excuses, what I'm expressing right now, why I didn't do my workout today, could sound like a whole bunch of excuses. But the reality is like, this is truly life happening. Like, I did not plan this. I did not prepare for this. And actually, I think it really goes to show that the growth in my relationship with my body, because I used to not be able to skip a workout without having immense amount of guilt and shame, and it impacting the entirety of my day. So the fact that I can truly understand that, you know what, I ended up taking the dog for the walk. You know, I could have adjusted. Yeah. Could I have worked out from home and all that? Whatever. Fine. Yeah, sure. But in this stage of my life, like I had just mentioned before, like I'm actually really trying my hardest to actually go to classes. It helps with my socialization. It helps me get out of the house. And it's how I prefer to work out nowadays. For years, I used to work out at home, but that phase of my life is over. Well, it changed now that I might have a dog now. Who knows? I don't know. But anyways, the plan of the dog, sidebar, is I, of course, want to reignite it with its owners, but I've posted on everywhere. I've called the police departments. I've called the Humane Society. I've gone to local shelters. I've gone to different vet centers. Like, I'm still trying. It's literally only been 24 hours, which once again, I can't even believe because it feels like it's been a month. But I really am trying my absolute hardest to find this owners. But in the meantime, like people have said, like, I know someone who wants a dog or can have a dog or, would be happy to adopt, but like not for nothing. Like this poor thing was just probably roaming the streets for what seems like weeks because he's a little bit, he's like his fur is matted. So he looks like he was abandoned. I don't think it was intentional because he also, even though he's all matted, he also looks like he was like recently shaven down. Like he had an owner that groomed him. And like, when you tell him to sit, he sits. So he knows commands. He still has his collar, even though it doesn't have his contact information. He belongs to someone. I know his owners are looking for him, and it actually breaks my heart, and it makes me so sad. So I'm hoping that at some point they do get reconnected. But in the meantime, I don't really want to put him into somebody else's situation. He's already having such a hard time adjusting here to have to adjust to somebody else to then eventually go back with the owner. Plus, he's not my dog to give to anybody, right? I'm just kind of keeping him safe in the meantime. Hello, I'm interrupting this episode to tell you about Surely. Surely is a non-alcoholic wine that tastes like wine, is as delicious as wine, and is as refreshing as wine, but you just don't have the hangover the next day or the alcohol. Sometimes after a long day, we want to put our feet up and sip on a nice glass of wine just because of the act of doing so. For some of us, it becomes very habitual. And we don't always necessarily want the alcohol, but we do kind of want just something to kind of look forward to. So Surely is a sure way for you to do that. They have sparkling rosé, Sauvignon Blanc. They have sparkling, like a Cabernet. and they are all extremely delicious, and they actually taste like wine. So make sure you go to the link in my show notes to save 15% off. As the weather's getting nicer, it is really just a great thing to kind of have where maybe you just are cutting back or you just don't drink in general, and you kind of want to be part of the party and part of the fun without actively consuming all of the wine that maybe you're used to out of habit. It's really, really refreshing. So go to the link in my show notes to save 15% off with discount code Tips with Tony and enjoy. Anyways, so with that said, life is clearly happening right now. Am I self-sabotaging? I really don't think that I am. I don't believe that I am. And the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about this is because when you're healing your relationship with food in your body and you're not doing the all or nothing, right? You're not doing the all in thing, very often it can almost feel like, for example, if you take a rest day and you never used to take a rest day before, you're kind of like, oh no, does this mean like I'm gonna completely fall off my target and off track, and I'm not gonna be able to do this consistently, and this is basically me giving up on myself, and if I skip today, that means I'm probably gonna skip tomorrow and I'm gonna skip the next day. No, that's when you were stuck in the all or nothing mentality. But now that you're working on a balanced approach, you understand that one day off actually makes you come back stronger the next day, right? So when you're healing, sometimes it's unclear, like, is this me, taking advantage of the fact that like I'm healing, and so I'm just gonna like skip today and then I'm gonna skip tomorrow because I'm trying not to like, making exercise be the thing that I obsess over, but like now you haven't exercised in 3 weeks. Well, that's clearly self-sabotage, right? But if it's more so like, you're understanding life is happening, but I'm going to get back to it, whether you're on a trip or a vacation, or it's not even like it's not like you're just sitting. I hate to say this stupid analogy because people say it all the time and I don't really love it because I think it's kind of fat phobic, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is like, you're not sitting on the couch eating bonbons all day, right? Like you just didn't do your scheduled workout, but you still went out for a walk, or you are going to, have every intention of going back tomorrow. It's literally been a day. It hasn't been a year or months. It's literally been one day, or maybe you took the weekend off. Okay. It's been 2 days, or maybe you needed a 3-day weekend, a nice long weekend. Okay. It's fine. However, I think for all of us, we kind of know there's a point where then we know, like, is this just me recovering, or is this me self-sabotaging? And so I think it's just really important. Like, I wish that I could give you like a very easy or specific guide for you to be able to understand the difference of like, is this life happening or is this self-sabotaging? But I think it is very unique to each person. But here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that if you're questioning if it's self-sabotage, and it's been the second or third time you're questioning that, it might be self-sabotage, right? But if it's like a one-time occurrence, like here's the difference. When you're committed to a healthy lifestyle and when you've habitually engaged in certain behaviors like balanced eating, balanced exercise, sleep, stress management, right? There's going to be moments in your life where things kind of throw you off kilter a bit. And it's life happening is not like your usual day-to-day stress, right? That is life happening, but that's just life, right? Life happening, when I say that, is usually when something like you were not planning, you kind of get like, you get thrown a curveball, right? Unfortunately, maybe someone passes, or you're diagnosed with an illness, or your family member's diagnosed with an illness, or, you lose your house, God forbid, or I don't know, something like very, like that's life happening. That's like dramatic, right? That's like traumatic, right? You get into a car accident, whether you get injured or not, but you have to get your car got totaled. Now you have to worry about like that. That's life happening. And sometimes that requires like an adjustment, right? That requires flexibility. That even might require you to just like, put this on the shelf and come back to it in a couple of days. But self-sabotage is putting something on the shelf and not coming back to it for a year. Self-sabotage is making excuses every single time life happens, right? Every single time you have a little bit of a stress or a trigger or something emotional happen, right? It's a pattern, right? It's every Friday, it's every weekend, it's every evening, it's every day, it's every week, every month, right? It's something that is habitually happening. That is a really big difference between, life just happens and, I'm kind of just adjusting right now versus I'm deliberately self-sabotaging. And basically, the other analogy I would probably share with you is like, okay, so here's an example. You forget your lunch. You cook your lunch, you pack your lunch, you make your lunch, but then you leave it at home and you're like, damn it, I had every intention to bring in my lunch, right? And then you get a phone call that the person that maybe was going to take you out on a date is like, never mind, I'm not interested anymore. I don't know. So now you're like, F this, how annoying is this? I may as well just order in Chinese, have a tub of ice cream and like give up on love completely, right? Or whatever it is, right? So like that point being is like that is self-sabotaging because you're kind of like, you got an inch, you took a mile, right? You like had a reason to kind of quote unquote give up, and you did. That usually is showing that like, first of all, your mindset is completely whacked, excuse me, but like it's just completely still wrapped up in diet culture. But often like that, there's still more healing that needs to be done, and that you actually have the ability to flip the script a little bit. Okay. Sorry if I'm distracted. Of course, as I'm recording, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but there's construction going on outside my window. I really can't even win here. I like can't get a break, right? But here's an example of life happening. And a self-sabotage example would be me to decide to stop recording and to not put this episode out and to just redo it and then never post it and blah, blah, blah. No, life is happening and I'm continuing and I'm adjusting and it's just what's happening, right? When life happens, also know that in the moment, you got to figure it out. However, there's always a way to figure it out. So going back to the dog example, right now he's adjusting and I hope that at some point he stops barking when I leave. And if he doesn't, maybe I will have to adjust and maybe I will need to find a way to work out from home and I won't have the luxury to go out and take classes. That's a possibility, right? I get to choose. But one choice that will not be for me is I'm not going to never work out because now I have a dog, right? And I think that is something that when you have a child or when you have an elderly parent that you're taking care of, right? Or you have life happening in a way it's not ending, right? This is life happening, but like you have a choice. So are there going to be moments where you can't make certain choices or you need to adjust because life is happening? Sure. But are you using that as an excuse to self-sabotage? And is it prolonging your progress like tenfold, right? That's the difference. So I'm going to end with this. Like only you really know the answer to that. Only you can really be honest with yourself when you answer that question. I can just help you kind of reflect on it and think on it. But if you found this episode helpful and it really helped you to see that maybe you have been self-sabotaging a little bit, or you know what, maybe you've been too hard on yourself because life is just happening. Maybe you did lose a loved one. Maybe you are recovering from a really big illness physically or mentally, right? Like maybe you need to give yourself some grace right now and stop being so hard on yourself. Or maybe you need to give yourself a little bit of tough love, right? There's a delicate balance there. And I think people struggle because they don't know how to work in the middle, but life is always happening in the middle, right? So the sooner you can understand that it's not black and white, it's not all or nothing, that, it can be both, you will thrive even when life is happening, and you will persevere and continue on even when life is happening, and you'll be able to catch yourself when you are dipping into old patterns or potentially self-sabotaging, and you'll be able to shift and grow and continue to prosper. And that's all that I hope and want for you. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, make sure you take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, tag me at tips_with_Tony with an I, or the Tips with Tony podcast. If you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when a new episode comes out. And that is it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, a registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.